The encounter in the far edge of the galaxy, where no star maps reached. A human pilot named Ethan Gray flew alone in his small ship, the Solace. He wasn't a soldier or a famous explorer, just a cargo pilot who liked quiet space and empty skies. He often flew where no one else dared to go, far from colonies and space stations. This time, he was headed back from a routine job when his ship picked up something strange, a weak signal, a distress call, but not in any language he recognized. It wasn't human, not even close. The signal repeated again and again, like a whisper in the dark, unknown source. His AI, Nora, said, "Coordinates locked, 14 minutes away." Ethan hesitated. He had heard stories about traps pirates, hostile species, broken tech calling for help just to lure people in. Still, something about this signal felt sad, lonely, desperate. "All right," Ethan muttered. "Let's check it out." When he arrived at the coordinates, a small escape pod floated in the dark, cracked open like an egg. Half of it was burned, the other half iced over. Inside was a girl, or something like a girl. Her skin was pale violet, like moonlight. She had glowing white hair, tangled and drifting weightlessly. She was breathing, but barely. Her eyes were closed, her chest moved weakly, and a strange metal symbol blinked on her collarbone. "No signs of weapons," Nora said. "Vital signs critical." Ethan looked at her and sighed. "This is a bad idea," he said, pulling her inside his ship. He placed her in the med pod and started emergency treatment. Unknown species, unknown biology, but his ship's automed did its best. He watched as the machine scanned her body, patched her wounds, and stabilized her pulse. Hours passed. Ethan sat near the pod, eating cold protein bars, staring at the strange girl. Who was she? Where did she come from? Why was she alone? Suddenly, the med pod beeped. Her eyes opened, bright silver like starlight, and stared at him. "You," she said softly, her voice shaking. "You weren't supposed to find me." "What?" Ethan leaned closer. "You're safe now." "You were?" "Dying." She tried to sit up, but winced in pain. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "They're watching now." "Who's watching?" Ethan asked, but before she could answer, the lights in the ship flickered. Nora's voice stuttered. "System error, foreign code detected." The main screen glowed red, then lines of alien symbols appeared across it. Ethan's heart raced. What the hell is going on? The alien girl grabbed his arm weakly. "They know you helped me," she said. "They're testing you now." Before Ethan could ask more, the ship began to shake slightly, though there was no movement. Outside the window, space itself seemed to shimmer like a dream or illusion. "Trial 1 has begun," said a voice that wasn't from the ship. It came from everywhere and nowhere, calm, cold, and in perfect English. Ethan looked around, eyes wide. "Trial? What trial? Who? Are you people?" The girl looked at him with sadness in her eyes. "My name is Lyra," she said. "And I'm sorry, Ethan." Then everything went dark. The ship vanished. The stars disappeared. And Ethan found himself standing alone in a street. A street. From Earth, his home city. But something was wrong. The sky was burning. Buildings were on fire. People screamed and ran as strange ships flew overhead. "What the?" he whispered. Confused, suddenly, he saw a child, crying and alone in the yaw. Road. A beam of light targeted the child from one of the ships above. It was going to fire. Ethan ran without thinking. He reached the child, picked them up, and rolled behind a broken car. Just before the blast hit, smoke filled the air, but they were safe. The child looked up at him, then disappeared into thin air. Street melted away like fog, and Ethan stood back in his ship, gasping. Lyra was staring at him, silent. What the hell was that? He asked, sweating. "The first trial," she said. "You were supposed to abandon the child, save yourself. But I couldn't." Ethan said. That's not who I am. Lyra looked down, and for the first time, she smiled a little. They're not going to understand you, she said. But maybe that's why they chose you. On the screen, new symbols appeared, blinking slowly. Trial 2. Initiating. And the ship's gravity failed, sending everything floating. Ethan reached for the control panel, but it was already too late. They were falling, but not downwards, into something else entirely. The test begins. Ethan's ship was gone. The stars, the screen, the controls, everything had vanished. He was floating in a dark space, with no sound, no air, no gravity. Yet he was breathing, alive, confused. A voice echoed through the darkness. You saved a life. Now we test your soul. Suddenly, the void shifted. Light burst from beneath. Him and Ethan dropped. He wasn't in space anymore. He landed hard on a glass-like floor under a red sky. All around him stood reflections of himself. Dozens of them, each one slightly different. One looked older, one looked younger. One wore a soldier's armor. Another wore a prison uniform. Each version stared at him with hollow eyes. Where am I? Ethan shouted, What is this place? Lyra appeared beside him, but she looked different. Her body shimmered. Her eyes had no color, and her voice was robotic. This is the second trial, she said. You face your other selves? A deep hum began to rise as one of the reflections stepped forward, the one in a military suit with scars across his face. This version of you, the voice said, chose war over peace. Another stepped forward, dressed in black, hands covered. In blood, this one chose revenge. Each reflection moved closer. They all made choices, Lyra said. Now you must make yours. Ethan backed away as the reflections circled him. I'm not like them, he said, but doubt crept into his voice. The reflections began whispering, You are us. You could become us. You already have. Suddenly, the glass floor cracked beneath Ethan's feet. He fell again straight into a new world. Now he stood in a quiet forest, moonlight shining through tall trees. But the silence was wrong, too perfect. Too still. He heard footsteps behind him. When he turned, he saw his father, dead for 10 years. Dad? Ethan whispered. His father smiled, reached out a hand. Come home, son. You've been gone long enough. Ethan froze. His father's voice was exactly as he remembered, but something felt cold. Then he saw it. The hand reaching out had metal joints. The eyes had no warmth. This wasn't real. You're not my father, Ethan said, stepping back. You're just another test. The figure's smile vanished, replaced by a sharp, mechanical screech. It charged him, transforming into a monster part machine. Part shadow, Ethan grabbed a fallen branch and fought it off. Swing after swing, refusing to run, with one final strike. The creature shattered into black smoke. Everything faded again. He was back on the ship, real this time, or so it seemed. The lights flickered back on, the gravity returned, and Nora's voice returned, slow and shaky. Warning, external presence detected. Lyra sat on the floor, holding her head. I told them to stop, she whispered, but they won't stop now. Ethan crouched beside her. What is this really about? Why are they testing me? She looked up, her eyes glowing again. Because your kind is unpredictable, she said. Some of us fear you. You act on feelings more than logic. You protect strangers. You risk everything for hope. To them, you are dangerous. Ethan stood up, jaw clenched. Then they better be ready for more surprises. Suddenly, the walls of the ship pulsed, and from the shadows stepped a new figure. Not a reflection, not a memory. An alien with armor made of living energy. Its face hidden beneath a smooth silver mask. It spoke without moving its mouth. Ethan Gray, Trial 3 begins now. Alien raised its hand, and the ship began to dissolve. Not explode, but unravel. Like threads of reality being pulled apart, Ethan reached for Lyra, but she was already vanishing into light. "Prove them wrong," she whispered, "or Earth will burn." And then darkness again. But this time, Ethan wasn't afraid. This time, he was ready. The unseen judge's Ethan opened his eyes and saw nothing. No stars, no ship, no floor under his feet. Just a dark, endless void. But this darkness felt alive. It watched him, listened, breathed with him. Then came the sound, a slow, heavy heartbeat. But it wasn't his. A circle of glowing symbols appeared around him, floating in the air like fireflies. From the shadows, 12 massive figures began to form, each one a different alien species. Some looked insect-like, some made of smoke, one of pure light. Their eyes burned like small suns, and none of them blinked. "You stand before the unseen judges," one of them said, its voice shaking the space around him. Ethan clenched his fists. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "I just saved someone who needed help." "That was the first choice," the light being said. "Now we test your instincts, your loyalty, your mind." A deep hum began, and the void around him morphed into a jungle. He stood inside thick green trees, his boots now muddy. He was holding a weapon, but it wasn't one he recognized. It looked like metal, but it pulsed like a heartbeat. Then he heard a scream. Lyra, Ethan ran. Pushing through the vines, he came to a clearing end. Saw 2 Lyras, both chained, both bleeding, both begging for help. "Ethan." "No, I'm the real one." "She's lying." "No, she is." He froze. His brain screamed for logic, but his heart shouted louder. There was no time to test, no time to scan. He looked into their eyes, one pair full of fear, the other full of calculation. He pointed the weapon. One of the Lyras smirked, just slightly. Ethan fired. The fake Lyra screamed, turned to ash, and vanished. The real Lyra collapsed, crying. "You trusted your heart," she whispered, "even when your mind was confused." The jungle faded, and they were back in the void. The alien judges whispered among themselves, their glowing eyes shifting colors. A cold wind passed through the space. The next trial began without warning. Suddenly, Ethan was in a burning space station. People screamed behind closed blast doors. Gas leaks hissed. Explosions rocked the floor. He saw a control panel. If he pulled the lever, the fire suppression would kick in. But next to it was a screen. Lyra. Locked in a different room with 0 oxygen. He had 10 seconds. Save the people or save her. He froze. An ORA's voice echoed in his mind. "Time is a knife, Ethan." He pulled the lever for the blast doors, saved the crowd. Lyra would die. But nothing happened. Instead, both rooms opened, and everyone survived. "Another test," he muttered, "just like the others." Then the judges spoke again. "You pass not because you are perfect," one said, "but because you are flawed and choose anyway." But then the room began to shake. One of the judges stood up. "No," it said. "He is too human, too dangerous." The others looked at it, surprised. "This test is no longer simulation." It hissed. "This test becomes real." It raised a hand, and suddenly, 3 alien warriors appeared on the ship, fully armed. Ethan and Lyra were thrown across the room as energy blasts tore through the air. "Get behind me," Ethan shouted, pulling a metal shield off the wall. He fought not to win, but to protect, even injured. He stood in front of Lyra. Even scared, he kept moving forward. He grabbed a pipe, slammed it into one attacker, dodged a second blast. He wasn't the strongest. He wasn't the fastest. But he refused to go down finally. As the last alien raised a blade, Lyra screamed. Her body lit up with golden energy. The same symbols from before returned, glowing on her skin. A blast of light through the enemy's back. When it faded, she stood tall, changed. "Awake. They pushed too far," she said, her voice deeper now. They made it real. She looked at Ethan. And now I make my choice. Before he could speak, she placed a hand on his chest. His wounds vanished. Her eyes burned with fire, and behind her, the judges began to tremble. She's activating the bond. One whispered, "It's too soon." But it was already happening, human and alien. Mind and spirit, merging just enough to break the rules. The trial was no longer theirs. Now, Ethan and Lyra were the ones testing the universe. Humanity's secret power. The ship was silent, too silent. Ethan and Lyra stood in the middle of the command deck, surrounded by broken pieces of what once were alien warriors. The unseen judges had vanished. No more voices in the shadows. No more tests. For now, Lyra's body still glowed faintly, the ancient symbols pulsing on her arms and face. She was breathing heavily, trying to stay upright. What just happened? Ethan asked, voice low. Lyra looked at him, unsure. They triggered something in me, she said. A link, a bond. Part of their tech, part of your blood. My blood? Ethan repeated, confused. She nodded slowly. Your DNA reacted with the ancient markers, the same ones my people buried deep inside me. For emergencies only. Ethan looked down at his arm. Faint silver lines now shimmered just beneath his skin, moving slowly like liquid light. I didn't sign up for this, he muttered. But you were chosen, Lyra said. Not by them, by something older, something sleeping inside the stars. Before Ethan could reply, the ship jolted. Alarms blared, and NORA's voice crackled back to life. Emergency, gravitational pull increasing rapidly. Black hole proximity detected. Ethan rushed to the console. What black hole? We weren't near any. A massive shadow filled the screen. A black hole, wider than any known to science, twisting the light around it like liquid glass. We're being pulled in, Nora warned. Escape velocity unreachable with current. Power levels. Ethan stared at the numbers, the calculations. They made no sense. No engine could escape this. No ship could survive it. Lyra put her hand on his shoulder. This is your trial now, she said softly. Not theirs. I can't outfly a black hole. Ethan said, Nobody can. Then don't fly, she said, eyes glowing again. Think. Ethan closed his eyes. He remembered his father, an engineer back on Earth, who taught him to solve problems with his hands. He remembered being a child, watching his dad fix a broken solar generator using kitchen tools and spare wires. Improvise, adapt, override. His father always said. Ethan's eyes snapped open. Override, he whispered. He pulled open the power core access panel and stared at the energy grid. He couldn't escape the black hole, but maybe he could trick it. He rerouted the fusion drives into the ship's shields, reversed polarity to create a ripple field. If he could collapse the space around the ship just right, it might fall through the event horizon instead of into it. A dangerous idea, a 1 in a million. Move, but it was all he had. He hit the sequence. The ship groaned, metal straining under the pressure. Lyra braced herself against the wall. The stars outside bent into spirals. Time itself slowed. And then, silence. Ethan blinked. They were no longer falling. They were floating in white space. Bright, endless, soft like clouds. No black hole, no ship, just stillness. He turned to Lyra. What is this? She looked around with wide eyes. I don't know, she said. We passed through something. Old. From the distance, a soft glow approached. It wasn't a ship. It was a creature. Massive, ancient, made of stardust and memories. It spoke not with words, but with feelings. Ethan felt it in his chest. Hope, curiosity, recognition. It had seen humans before, a long, long time ago, and now it saw him. You have fire, the voice said. Not in your weapons, but in your heart. Ethan stepped forward. What are you? He asked. A witness, the creature said. And now, so are you. It reached out a tendril of light, touched Ethan's forehead. In a flash, he saw visions. Ancient wars, lost civilizations, dying stars, and one truth whispered again and again. Humanity is new, but not small. You are chaos, but you are hope. Then the vision ended. He was back on the ship. Lyra gasped. The black hole was gone. They were in normal space again, orbiting a peaceful blue planet. Ethan touched his chest. Something inside him had changed. Something awakened. Lyra stepped beside him. You shouldn't have survived that, she said. But you did. Ethan looked at the stars. Then maybe we're not the ones being tested anymore. The betrayal. Ethan stood on the deck of the Solace, staring at the peaceful blue planet below. Everything was calm, but something inside him was not. Ever since the light creature touched him, his thoughts felt different. Sharper, deeper, louder. Lyra stood beside him, silent. She hadn't spoken much since they returned. Her glowing marks had dimmed, but her eyes were always watching. Lyra, Ethan said, what really happened back there? That place, that being, did you know it existed? She looked at him, hesitant. No, she said, but I think my people did. Before Ethan could ask more, alarms blared, red lights flashed, and NORA's voice shouted, unidentified vessels approaching fast origin. Unknown. The screen lit up with 3 alien ships, sleek, silver, marked with the same ancient symbols as Lyra. They weren't here to talk. They opened fire. Ethan grabbed the controls, dove the ship between asteroid cover. Blasts shook the hull. Lyra fell to the floor, shouting, don't shoot back. They'll kill you for it. Ethan swerved left, barely missing a rock. They're trying to kill us already. No, she said, getting up slowly. They're trying to take me. Suddenly, all systems went dark. No power, no lights, no control. The ship stopped moving. Frozen in space, a voice filled the air calm. Cold, sharp, human unit Ethan Gray, surrender. You are in possession of a critical subject. Release her, and your memory will be erased without pain. Lyra's face went pale. It's them, she whispered. The core authority. Ethan turned toward her. You knew they'd come? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at the floor, ashamed. Ethan stepped back. Tell me the truth, Lyra, he said. Was this your plan? She looked up, eyes full of regret. They never expected you to survive the trials, she said. They thought you'd fail, like the others. But you didn't. You passed all of it. They wanted me to lead you to the end, she said softly, so they could erase it all. You were never supposed to matter. Ethan stared at her, the betrayal hitting like a knife. So I was just an experiment, he said. A lab rat? No, she said quickly, stepping toward him. Not anymore. They wanted data, control, obedience. But I saw something else in you. Something they can't program. Choice. Before he could reply, a blinding light filled the room. 3 alien soldiers appeared inside the ship teleporters, armored, weapons ready. Lyra stepped between them and Ethan. I invoke Directive 7, she said, voice shaking but firm. I claim asylum under human protection. The soldiers paused. Then one replied, You are not authorized to use that code, hybrid. She is now. Ethan said, stepping beside her. She's under my command. The soldier raised its weapon. Then you are now a threat. Ethan reached for his sidearm. Too slow. But just as the alien fired, the bullet froze in the air. Everything stopped, like time itself paused. A figure stepped out from the shadows. The same ancient creature of light Ethan had seen before, but now it was smaller, denser, wearing a human face. Enough, it said. Its voice echoed in every direction, like 1,000 whispers at once. The soldiers vanished in an instant, turned to dust. The lights returned, and the ship came back to life. Ethan and Lyra stood speechless. The being walked closer, now shaped like an old human man, wrinkled, gentle eyes, glowing faintly. "You are not the first they've tested," he said, "but you are the first they failed to control. Your choice to protect her broke their code. Now they fear you." Lyra stepped forward. "Who are you?" she asked. The old man smiled. "Not who," he said. "What? I am what they locked away. The part of them that remembered emotion, connection, risk." He looked at Ethan. "And you reminded me what it felt like." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "Why help us now?" The being grew dimmer, fading slowly. "Because they will come again," he said. "But next time, it won't be a test. It will be a war." And with that, he vanished. The ship was quiet again, floating in space. But now, both Ethan and Lyra knew they were not experiments anymore. They were rebels, and the galaxy was watching. The truth revealed. The stars outside the solace shimmered unnaturally. They were not blinking, not moving. They were watching. Ethan stood at the helm, silent. His hands rested on the cold metal controls. But he wasn't flying anymore. The ship was being pulled gently, firmly, toward something massive. Lyra stood beside him, glowing again. "Not from pain this time, but from purpose. They're bringing us in," she said, "to the core citadel." "The what?" Ethan asked, eyes narrowing. "The center of the Accord," she answered. "The oldest council in this part of the galaxy. They will decide whether your species lives or is erased." Before he could speak, space bent and twisted, and then it appeared. The citadel. A colossal structure floating above a dead star, miles wide, shaped like a blooming flower made of obsidian and light. It pulsed with the memories of 1,000 lost civilizations. The ship docked without permission. The doors opened without command, and Ethan and Lyra were pulled into the heart of something ancient. A chamber beyond imagination round, endless, made of starlight and shadow. Inside sat the council, 12 beings, each older than time, each representing a species that had once survived the trials. Only a few had. "You stand before judgment," one said, voice like stone grinding on stone. Ethan stepped forward, fists clenched. "I didn't ask for your test," he said. "I didn't sign up for your game." A cold laugh echoed through the chamber. "Neither did your kind," said another. "But now your actions have changed the outcome." They showed him visions. Other humans who had been taken secretly, tested in silence, all of them failing. Some broke under fear, some turned violent, some begged for mercy, but Ethan didn't. He chose again and again to protect, to think, to feel. "You are the anomaly." A judge said, "The outlier, and that scares you." Ethan replied they didn't deny it. Lyra stepped forward. "Your system is broken," she said. "You created the trials to control evolution, not understand it." One of the judges leaned closer. "Emotion is unstable," it said. "It cannot be trusted." "Then you don't understand strength," Ethan said, voice hard. "Because real strength is choosing to feel anyway." There was silence, then a quiet hum. The chamber grew colder. A new figure entered. Tall, cloaked in white, eyes covered by a veil of stars. "The decision must be made," it said. "Earth's fate lies on a blade of balance." Ethan expected a vote, a trial, a speech, but instead they gave him the final choice. A hologram appeared, showing Earth from space, still turning, still alive, still unaware. "You may choose," the voice said. "Reveal the truth to your world and risk chaos, or let them forget everything. No knowledge of aliens. Of you, of Lyra. Peace, but with ignorance." Ethan felt the weight of the galaxy pressing on his chest. Lyra touched his hand. "I'll follow whatever you choose," she whispered, "but make sure it's a choice you can live with." He stared at Earth, his home, full of broken systems, divided people, but also full of kindness, art, hope, and the fire that had brought him this far. He closed his eyes and made his choice. The chamber began to crack with light. The council gasped. You? You chose both, one said. Shocked, Ethan had rewritten the code. Instead of revealing the truth or hiding it, he chose to seed it, to leave messages hidden across Earth, in dreams, in art, in static radio signals, in books no one noticed, not to tell the world everything, but to let curiosity grow naturally, a quiet awakening. Humanity would discover the truth when it was ready. The light exploded around him. The council vanished, and Ethan and Lyra were thrown back onto the ship. The stars outside looked the same. But everything had changed. Lyra smiled. You gave them a future, she said. Not answers, but the chance to find them. Ethan took the pilot's seat again. We'll need to prepare Earth, he said. They won't be alone forever. And somewhere in the dark between galaxies, other eyes were opening, watching, waiting, and wondering, who are the humans? And what will they do next? Everything changes. The stars looked quiet again. Too quiet. But Ethan knew the silence meant something was coming. It had been 3 weeks since the council vanished. 3 weeks since he made the choice that changed everything, to seed Earth with. Hidden truths, not too fast, not too loud, just enough to awaken curiosity. Lyra was healing. The glow in her skin now stable. Her powers calm, but her mind was heavy. She could feel it. Something had shifted in the fabric of space. There. Not finished, she said one morning, staring at the navigation screen. The council was only the gate. Ethan nodded. He had felt it too. A dream he couldn't explain. A voice that called to him while he slept, saying, You've been seen by something older. Suddenly, alarms. Screamed. NORA's voice trembled. Unidentified warp signature detected. Location. Earth. Ethan froze. Lyra's eyes widened. They're already here, she whispered. They jumped to light speed. The journey back to Earth took less than an hour, but it felt like a lifetime when they arrived. The sky over Earth was torn. Not in a physical way, but space itself was folding, like reality was being rewritten. Above the planet floated a massive object, not a ship, not a creature. It was a construct of pure thought. A being made of logic, memory, and cosmic law. It called itself the Arbiter. It did not speak with words. It spoke directly into every human mind at once. Billions of people suddenly stopped what they were doing and heard one sentence. Have been observed. Panic swept across cities. Governments froze. Satellites failed. People looked to the skies with fear and wonder. Ethan opened a direct channel. This isn't part of your tests, he said to the Arbiter. This is something else, the being replied. You broke the pattern. You defied the council. Now we test your world. In an instant, Earth's orbit was filled with replicas, copies of major cities, created in space, each one running simulations. What humans would do under pressure, under fear, under truth. Some cities failed, some united, some sacrificed. Ethan and Lyra watched from above, powerless. I thought we were done, he said. We only just began, she replied. Then, a light spread from South Asia. A single act of compassion inside a simulation triggered a chain reaction. A child inside a testing pod shared oxygen with a stranger. No script, no reward, just kindness. The Arbiter paused. For the first time, it hesitated. And Ethan spoke again. You wanted to see what we are, he said. Then don't just look at our wars. Look at what we do when no one is watching. When it's not about winning, when it's about doing what's right. Silence filled the stars. Then came the answer. Your species is unfinished, but you are not without worth. We will not interfere. The being vanished. The sky cleared. Earth was safe. But something had changed forever. Ethan and Lyra stood on the ship, orbiting their planet. They had faced trials, illusions, war, betrayal, and judgment. And now, They were keepers of a secret too large for words. What now? Lyra asked. Ethan smiled faintly. We watch, he said. We guide when needed. We protect this crazy little world until it's ready. Below, Earth turned quietly. Billions of people unaware that today they were nearly erased, unaware that someone had spoken for them, and won, but in forgotten books. Odd dreams, strange inventions, and the art of lost children, little sparks had already begun. The seeds Ethan planted were growing. The galaxy would return one day, and when they did, humanity would be ready.